to the Environmental Facilities Corporation Board meeting. Today is Thursday, June 23rd. It is 12:40. Madam Secretary, can you call the roll, please?
Certainly, Chairman Stefanko.
Here.
Ms. Westerman is not with us. Mr. Leary?
Here.
Mr. Corcoran?
Present.
Mr. Marquis? Here. Mr. Krasinski?
Here.
And Mr. Zarowski.
I'm here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum of the board.
You do have a quorum. So the first item on the agenda is approval of the draft minutes from June 13. I think we were all present, if I'm not mistaken. Any discussion? Great. I'll take a motion in a second for
So
approval.
moved. Second.
James, thank you, Francis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That was unanimous. I have nothing to report other than happy to be in person, seeing some friendly faces again. So we were trending in the right direction. Madam President.
Oh, have nothing to report, but I ditto Jeff's. And it's very nice to have folks back in the office, in the boardroom.
All right. We did have some committees today. We had finance and audit. Vita chairs the finance. No, Francis chairs the finance committee, which was first at 10:45. Francis, do you have a few things you want to report on?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. The Finance Committee met this morning. We had a full quorum and we had attendance from required staff. The Finance Committee approved in our meeting the minutes of September 2nd, as well as those of February 14th, 2022, and the September 2, 2021 minutes. We did a review and conducted our annual review and reassessment of the Finance Committee charter. There were no proposed changes. And so we are going to recommend to the chair that at the appropriate time that be readopted. And then we also met and had a presentation from Albert on the annual debt report, which is issued each year for the fiscal year ended March 31, 2022. And we voted unanimously to accept that and to move it to the entire board for a recommendation that it be accepted and approved by the full board upon its presentation today as item number 1 on the board agenda. And that was essentially our meeting today and concludes my report.
Thank you, Francis. One item which we will take board action on is readoption of the charter for the Finance Committee. Any discussion? Okay, I'll take a motion in a second.
So moved.
Francis?
Second.
We'll count that as a second. Any discussion again? Excellent. All those in favor of readoption of the charter?
Aye.
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 Unanimous. Okay. We will now move to the Audit Committee, which met at 11:15. Charlie Krasinski was the chair.
Yep, just a quick report on what we did. We had a meeting with the staff and the outside auditor at KPMG. We had a meeting with KPMG, in private, to talk about their audit. That'll be on the agenda later. I think ID number 2. Talk about their audit. It was, full exchange of information. Excellent. The audit committee also discussed the audit committee charter, and I think we'll vote on that later. On the audit committee, just renewing the charter, and then also the rotation of the lead partner. We discussed that as well, and I think that sort of covers the discussions that we had, and then we'll act on things later. Or should we act on?
And
We're going to act, yeah, we're going to do
do
3
it.
resolutions.
Yeah, okay, great.
2 items, yeah.
And other than ID number 2, that'll probably hit the resolution.
Okay, good, great. So,
So the first item is motion and second for the auditor's report.
Okay, good. So, yeah, I'll make a motion to accept the audit from KPMG reflecting last year's financial statements and accepting their clean opinion reflecting the financial statements for EFC.
And the actual financial statements are the subject of ID number 2. This one's just for the audit report.
Just the
Right,
report.
that's the report.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you, Vita. Was there any discussion on the audit report?
Again, it was very positive, thorough,
Clean.
clean, terrific, best ever. So,
All those in favor?
Aye.
This
As
item,
well as Frank.
Chair Francis has stepped away briefly. He will be back shortly.
We were unanimous otherwise. The next item for action is approval of the recommendation of the committee that an internal auditor, official internal auditor function is not required.
yeah, we had a good discussion on that topic. The audit committee recommended that we not institute an internal auditor or EFC, at this time, but every year we discuss it, and this year we discussed it, and we're not recommending that this year. So I'll make a motion that we vote not to appoint an independent internal auditor for EFC at this time.
Second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you, Vita. Any further discussion? Standing, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Final item. Is approval to adopt the audit committee charter, which I don't think had any changes.
That's right. Yeah, no changes were recommended. We've all reviewed it. And I'll make a motion to renew the audit committee charter as it written with no change.
Second.
I'll second.
Vita. All right, any discussion? Excellent. All those in favor? Aye. Unanimous. The next item is the board performance review committees.
So the board reviews the committees and
Their
performance for the year,
right, gotcha.
for the annual meeting. It's very close to the last June meeting, so.
All right, so we're gonna go through each of the committees and to make sure the comfort level, that they're performing and fulfilling their responsibilities. So the first committee is a governance committee, was chaired by Vita. I'd like to get the consent of the board, the remainder of the board, with a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion that my motion would basically say Vita does a great job of governance, chairing the governance committee, takes it very seriously and gets into the details. And we discussed it, a very thorough discussion every year. So I'll make a motion to continue Vita as the chair of that committee. And
For my purposes, I'm gonna say we're moving that it's effective in fulfilling its responsibility.
it is
Fantastic.
more than that.
We will
more
get
than
to
that.
membership next, I
Great,
promise.
excellent. So it's doing its job.
So if I'm not mistaken, we don't need to do actual motion second, so just a confirmation.
Yeah, if anyone has any issues or concerns
You can raise it.
about the effectiveness of the committees and fulfilling their responsibilities, and then we'll do the formal recommendations for that.
Excellent, okay. So I hear nothing further in governance. The next committee is the finance committee, which is chaired by Francis Corcoran. I feel it's fulfilling its responsibilities. If there's anyone else, any other members who would like to comment?
I feel it's very effective, and the key to it is doing the deep dive on it beforehand.
Agreed. Good. That's preparation. Thank you. All right. And we will, so we'll confirm that one. It's fulfilling its responsibilities. And the next item is the audit committee charter, which is chaired by Charlie. And I concur that it's fulfilling its responsibilities, and the chair is doing so as well. Any Additional comments?
Again, very deep dive into the organization and always a comfort level here at audit. And the community.
Thank you, Vita. Okay, nothing further on that as well. So the final item is the reappointment of the committee memberships. If I am not mistaken, they will remain the same. With Charlie as chair of the audit committee, Francis, Vita, and Adam as members. Vita will be chairing the governance committee with Francis, Charlie, and Adam as members. And then Francis will continue as the finance chair with Vita, Charlie, and Adam as members. Any discussion on the membership? I'll take a motion in a second to approve the reappointment of those committees and chairs.
So moved.
Thank you, James. We'll count Adam as the second.
Aye.
All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you for the honor.
Yes. All right, good job, everyone. That's approved unanimously. Unless there's any additional unfinished business anyone would like to raise before we head into resolutions. Resolution number 1.
A resolution of the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation with respect to the review and approval of the annual debt report of the corporation.
I have a motion second, please.
I'll make a motion.
James, thank you. Albert and I will be presenting.
Thank you. So before the board, we have the annual debt report of the corporation as of 3/31/2022. The first schedule is all of the state revolving fund debt that we have on our books currently. This year we issued 2 series. 2021A refunded clean water, drinking water, New York City Municipal Water Authority bonds, and there was no new money on that. 2021B was a pooled financing that included both new money and our funding of 2011C, and the combined savings from both of those refundings was over $126 million. That's a very big savings to our borrowers. The second schedule is our private activity bonds, which we have had no issuances or maturities this year. So the total outstanding remains the same at 3/31/22 as it did at 3/31/21. Finally, third schedule is the expenses associated with the 2 series that were previously mentioned. And also to note that our personal income tax bonds that we act as a conduit for all matured in the prior fiscal year, so that schedule is no longer on the report.
Thank you, Albert. Discussion, questions for Albert? Great. All those in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Resolution number 2.
Resolution of the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation accepting financial statements of the corporation for the fiscal year ended March 31st, 2022.
Motion is second.
I'll make a motion.
Awesome.
Thank you, Vita. Albert again with the presentation.
Thank you. So as discussed in the audit committee, KPMG expects to issue a clean or unmodified opinion on our financial statements this year. Again, this reflects the efforts of really EFC staff, not just at audit time, but really throughout the year, to tick and tie and reconcile everything on an ongoing basis. So it's a big effort, and I'll just acknowledge that. So on the financial statements themselves, a few highlights. Our net position increased by $232.5 million this year, as opposed to an increase of just 2.3 last year. This was primarily the result of our capitalization grants being drawn in, which last year we had to hold on due to a telecom memo sent out to the EPA. So we were conservative, we didn't draw anything in. This year we're back to drawing, so that net position is back to its typical increase. Slightly offset by a reduction in the unrealized gain on our long-term bond portfolio as a result of interest rate increases. And this is not a cash impact to EFC because we hold these to maturity, but it is reflected in the financials in our investment income. So there is a difference year over year that stands out. Our short-term receivables are up 467 million, which is good. We're putting our capital to work, which is reflected in decrease in cash and cash equivalents of 295 million. So we're getting our funds out there. And so overall, the corporation just remains in a really strong position financially. Our net position is $7.3 billion, majority of which is loans to municipalities, and 5.9 in clean water, 1.4 in drinking water, and then our corporate net position is about 8.5 billion. So that's the unrestricted net position line item on our balance sheet. Questions?
I'd just like to thank you.
Yeah.
For the work you've been doing. It's reflected by the board. Whole position.
Thanks. Yeah, no, our team's done a fantastic job.
Thank you. Good. All those in favor? Aye. Back. Unanimous. Resolution number 3.
A resolution of the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation with respect to the annual review and approval of the guidelines for the disposition of property of the corporation.
Let's have a motion and a second.
So moved.
Francis. And thank you in a second. Maureen McGrath with the presentation.
Everyone, attached for you again this year are disposition of property guidelines. These are in accordance with Public Authorities Law Section 2896. Every authority is required to adopt by resolution a policy and instructions regarding the use, awarding, monitoring, and reporting of contracts for the disposal of property. The guidelines that are reviewed and approved each year are to ensure that we have an adequate inventory of controls and accountability for all property we maintain, that there is an appropriate inventory of our property that shall be disposed of, a written report of such property, and that EFC transfers or disposes of such property as promptly as possible. Each authority is required to publish a report listing all real property and include a list of this property disposed of during the period that has a value of $5,000 or more. This is reported in PARIS, which is the Public Authorities Reporting Information System, and our inventory list is also available on our public website. No changes have been made, again, to these guidelines this year, and no property was disposed of.
Discussion.
No, thank you.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous. Resolution number 4.
A resolution of the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation amending the prior authorization for financial assistance to be provided by the corporation to certain recipients in connection with the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund.
Motion and a second, please. Thank you, James. A second.
Second.
Thank you, Francis. Brian McAvoy with the presentation.
Thank you. The first financing involves 2 projects for the town of Oneonta. It's in Otsego County, and it involves the creation of Southside Water Districts number 5 and 6, which will consolidate several small privately owned public water systems along New York State Route 23 that are currently on insufficient private wells. We're asking approval to extend the maturity date of the short-term financing from October 6, 2022 to October 6, 2023. The additional time is needed primarily because of delays related to groundwater source investigation and development. Financing involves the village of Tupper Lake in Franklin County. It's for improvements to the existing distribution system and installation of new groundwater sources and treatment to bring the village into compliance with the surface water treatment rule. We're asking approval to extend the financing maturity date from September 21st, 2022 to September 21st, 2024, And this is needed to allow time to complete the project, particularly the installation of meters and develop an updated budget for long-term conversion.
Discussion?
No, Mr. Chairman.
I've got just a sort of a comment. So, I'll vote for these. What I'd love to see on this, because these are, like you said, distribution system, drinking water and meters. I'd love to see sort of what usually you do, numbers of people, number of households, currently metered or not. Those kinds of details are really helpful to me, just on the cover sheet. So, these don't have them, but if you try to get those on from now on, I'd love it.
Perfect.
It just gives us a sense of how many people we're talking about. We see the linear feet. It doesn't describe everything. So that's all. Thank you. Great.
Yeah, that would be great.
Agreed. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Resolution number 5.
A resolution of the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation making certain determinations and authorizing certain actions in connection with the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund and authorizing financial assistance payments to certain municipalities to fund eligible drinking water projects from funds appropriated for water infrastructure improvement projects.
Have a motion and a second.
I'll make that motion on ID 5.
And second.
Adam. David Phillips with the presentation.
Okay, we have 2 drinking water projects today. The first one is for the Village of Garden City in Nassau County, seeking an emerging contaminants WIA grant. Project is for a new advanced oxidation process and GAC treatment to remove PFOA, PFOS, and 1,4-dioxane from the golf club site wells number 8 and number 12. And the next one is for the town of Malone in Franklin County. This is a short-term market rate financing. So this project is refinancing a loan originally through the state's emergency loan program, which the work included replacement of approximately 4,000 linear feet of 10-inch water main along US Route 11, which is the main route through the town. The water main had experienced several breaks between 2015 and 2020, including 6 breaks over a 2-week period in the summer of 2020, which started the process for them to seek the emergency loan. And the reason for so many breaks is there was actually a time period in around 1999 or 2000 or so where there were a few communities in the North Country that received actually faulty ductile iron water main, which didn't last its intended useful life. So they were one of those communities, so they were able to replace that. Is there any questions?
Yeah, I know I always ask this question when we are authorizing for the FOAs. So I know it says in here, but I'm thinking about down the line, these are pretty hefty investments, as they should be. But how are we monitoring the cost of the long-term O&M associated with maintaining this? And you don't have to address all of this, but that is a question that I've been thinking about, and I ask it usually every time we authorize one of these. Is knowing that we're activating carbon, and what is that cost over time as we are going to run these for don't know how long, right? And then will they be coming back to municipalities that we've authorized? Are we anticipating them returning for O&M budget funding? Because that's going to be hard.
Well, the O&M, that's not an eligible cost through our program.
Right.
So once the infrastructure is built, it's part of their budget to pay for the costs associated with carbon replacement or regeneration or whatever that might be.
Is that part of the cost estimate when they get it from their engineers?
It should be the engineering report, right? That they've looked at the full cost.
Is that something we consider when funding, that they can maintain that financial obligation?
We really don't. I mean, we're looking at the project, the initial project, which would include the initial batch of carbon. Really ongoing costs for replacing carbon or anything else involved in running the system is kind of outside our realm of what we do.
Are they recycling it? You know?
Some communities
Know a little
regenerate.
bit more about the life cycle of these systems, because
Some communities regenerate. I know a lot of communities on Long Island who use carbon for other things,
yeah,
typically regenerate it. Ones we've seen for these new emergent contaminants, most we're seeing where they get the virgin carbon, so they're replacing with a new batch.
Destruction
Right.
of the carbon.
I think that long term it's going to go more towards the regeneration thing, but it's not where we are at this point.
Okay. Nothing further. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Resolution number 6.
Resolution of the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation amending the prior authorizations for financial assistance to be provided by the corporation to certain recipients in connection with the Clean Water State Revolving Fund.
Have a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Dan. Make that a second. Brian McAvoy with the presentation.
Thank you. Again, there's 2 financings in this ID. The first is for the Hudson River Black River Regulating District in Saratoga County. It's for the reconstruction of the Comptonville Dam Spillway Ice Sluice and repairs to the main spillway. We're asking approval to extend the maturity date of the short-term financing from November 2nd, 2022 to December 31st, 2022, and this would allow us to include it in EFC's anticipated pool at the end of the year. The second is for the village of Sharon Springs, in Schoharie County. Involves the planning, design, and construction of wastewater collection and treatment facility improvements. We're looking to amend the short-term interest-free financing to reflect the modification of project scope and to extend the maturity from September 14th, 2022 to September 14th, 2025. The scope is being amended to add the replacement or rehab of 27 manholes and the lining of replacement sewer lines.
Questions, comments? All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Final resolution number 7.
A resolution of the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation making certain determinations and authorizing certain actions in connection with the Clean Water State Revolving Fund and authorizing financial assistance payments to certain municipalities to fund eligible clean water projects from funds appropriated for water infrastructure improvement projects.
Okay, I have a motion and a second.
I'll make the motion on ID 7.
You got? Thank you, James. Thank you. Bill Brazell with the presentation.
All right, good afternoon. I've got 6 clean water projects before the board today for new financings. First, we have the town of Catskill in Greene County. This the long-term financing. The town just concluded a $14.35 million project to serve the Leeds and Jefferson Heights sewer districts. Before the board today, we're asking for authorization of a $10,191,205 long-term interest-free financing. Also, when the short-term financing was closed, the entire WIA grant had not been authorized. So today we're asking for authorization for the remaining $17,538 on the original WIA grant award. This project provided sewer service to approximately 800 homes within the town of Catskill. And the project also included replacement of a mechanical bar screen at the village's wastewater treatment plant and pump station improvements to handle the increased flow from the 2 sewer districts. And construction was completed in February of 2021. All right, next we have new short-term financing and authorization of a 2021 WIA grant for the village of Depew in Erie County. Requested board authorization is for a $729,875 short-term interest-free financing, $1,729,875 short-term market rate financing, and a $453,200 WIA grant. The Village of Depew is under consent order with New York State DEC to address sanitary sewer overflows within their collection system. The overall work under the consent order will include 11 phases of collection system improvements to reduce I&I in their collection system. This project includes the lining of approximately 27,200 linear feet of sewer main, rehabilitation of approximately 70 manholes, and replacement of 700 linear feet of sewer line. This work is expected to reduce sanitary sewer overflows to Cayuga and Skajaqua Creeks. Construction will begin this summer and is expected to be complete by the end of 2023.
This financing is also pre-financing a DEC water quality improvement grant in the amount of $1 million.
Next, we have the town of Dryden in Tompkins County. The town is undertaking a $4.8 million project. And they received a $1.25 million CDBG grant as part of that $4.8 million. The project will reduce I&I into the town's collection system. They're going to upgrade a pump station, replace approximately 3,400 linear feet of sanitary force main, rehabilitate 11,500 linear feet of collection sewer and 60 manholes. And then install 1,200 linear feet of new sewer lines on Dryden Road. Work is expected to begin this summer and will be complete this fall. And next we have the Village of Gouverneur in St. Lawrence County. The new short-term interest-free financing. We're requesting $950,000 in short-term interest-free financing and $182,750 in federal additional subsidization. Total project cost of $1.7 million. And like the last project, Village of Gouverneur also received a CDBG grant, this one for $750,000. The village is under consent order with DEC to work on this project to separate sewers within the village. This project will construct about 2,600 feet of new 8-inch sanitary sewers and 85 feet of storm sewers. Construction will begin this summer and is expected to be complete next spring. Next, we have Oneida County. It's a $39.78 million short-term financing. This is expected to be the last new short-term financing for the county's $350 million major upgrade of their treatment plant, Sequoia Pump Station. Board visited a few years ago. This requested financing includes a $15 million interest-free hardship financing, and then a short-term interest-free and market rate financing, each in the amount of about $12.4 million. And the work funded with this project will consist of the remaining phases of the county's major upgrade program, as I mentioned a moment ago. They're expected to be complete by the end of 2023. Nice to get that project completed. All right, and then finally we have the town of Rockland in Sullivan County, another new short-term hardship financing. This financing is for $264,990 in short-term hardship financing and $41,260 WIA grant. The town of Rockland is required to install disinfection at their wastewater treatment plant that serves the hamlet of Roscoe. And this financing also included a WQIP grant from DEC. This project included a WQIP grant. So it's a small project with a short duration. Construction will begin shortly and is expected to be completed this fall.
Questions for Bill, comments?
I've got one on the last one, the Roscoe one.
Yes.
You talk about disinfection and it talks about, sort of constructing a chlorine disinfection system. Just I'm wondering, it sort of has done less now than it used to be, because there's a
Chlorine versus UV.
That's right.
Yeah, I'd,
Give us a sense of what you think or what you know is going on here.
the majority of projects we're seeing are doing UV. I would say that the town of Rockland has other wastewater treatment plants serving other parts of the town. And if they're using chlorine, they may be comfortable with that and see that as necessary or as the best way to go. A lot of times when you go with UV, it's because they also have a limit. I mean, you have to use chlorine to kill the bad stuff, but you also don't want too much chlorine in the effluent, so they dechlorinate. That may not be an issue with this.
Yeah, here they talked about, they had residual chlorine, it's a problem here. So I guess that's what I was wondering, why we're going with a new chlorine system.
Yeah, I don't have the details of that. I can get it to you if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm just interested in that, like,
Okay.
At some point, just knowing what the analysis was, and there might have been some constraints. I'd love to know that. Thank you, great.
That was interesting to see the technology choice.
Yeah, exactly. And it changes, things change.
Yeah.
Costs, effectiveness. Thank you.
I was just thinking, how I talked about how I look forward to when we get all those stats, like how many linear feet. But I also would like to see, like, it would be interesting how many DC consent orders closed by our work.
Okay.
Ours are,
All right, because I always keep track of them and at one point we used to actually have up in the top if it was with a consent order or not. I mean, you can see it in the text, but I'd love to see that stat because that's a feather. Yeah, stat.
Button. I'm picturing a button.
Yeah.
And a fun stat. In the fun stat line.
I appreciated the note and the way the governor write up about the anticipated benefits to the environmental justice areas.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Nice.
We've been trying to include that. We're definitely looking at that in projects as they're going forward. The last round of WIA grants, the environmental justice was added as part of the scoring criteria.
and in the next round, we're going to ask the specific question so that the applicant helps us even more on what the specific benefit is to the.
How are you coming at that in terms of the percentage of investment dollars, or is there some other metrics that you guys are using for that scoring?
How much of the?
You said it was part of the criteria. I'm just wondering what diving into that. What are you using as metrics to gauge?
If the project is serving an EJ area.
Oh, so it's just binary on that. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
For our hardship policy, if you don't meet the demographics, we provide that alternative, which we've been doing for a couple of years.
Right. The other one. Right.
Right. That you can get it through hardship, but that's 50% of the cost for the project benefits in the EJ area. So this is less, but on the WIA, doesn't have a specific percentage. On the WIA applications in the next round, we will specifically ask them though, to tell us how they benefit, not just that they serve, but we want to know.
Right. That's sort of what I'm getting at, Marie. Is it a little more, beyond just the on-off, right?
And that will be included.
And then at some point, I guess you could measure. We think about how to measure efficacy down the line, right? As you start to see more of this, how much did they actually deliver to those communities and impact and things like that, and start refining the analysis, I would think.
Okay. Great. All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay. Unless there's any new business, we'll call for an adjournment. The next meeting is Thursday, August 4th, 11:30 a.m. Just the full board at that one. I will take a motion and a second for adjournment.
I'll make a motion.
So seconded.
All those in favor of adjournment? Aye. Unanimous. We are adjourned.